I have 3 simple tips that help me learn to love myself, and why I think self-love is shit. What's up guys, Matty B here and welcome to No Going Back, the channel with the tips, tricks and tools for mind and body transformation to help you be the best version of yourself. As someone who has battled major depression and anxiety, I know all too well the feeling of hating myself. At my lowest points, I would go to bed wishing I wouldn't wake up the following morning. And I tried all the recommended self-love techniques out there. Practice calm meditation. Take a relaxing bubble bath. Pour yourself a cup of soothing chamomile tea. Be the person you most admire. Put yourself in a child's shoes. Practice happy people watching. Pamper yourself by applying a face mask and painting your nails. Now there's nothing wrong with this advice, but for me, when I was in the pits of despair, crying myself to sleep every night, it wasn't enough. So what did work for me? Tip number 1, create some quiet time. Every day, do an activity that you enjoy that requires no talking with anyone else and allows you to completely focus on the task at hand. We've all heard the benefits of meditation, but what happens when you can't sit still? When sitting alone causes the dark thoughts and negative voices to start screaming at you. This was the problem I had with meditation. So I had to find an alternative that would work for me. And what did work was going for walks in nature, reading a good book, exercising, going to the gym. These became my mindfulness practices. Going to the gym was my saving grace. It gave me a reason to get out of bed in the morning. It gave me something to do, something to look forward to. And then when I would get into the gym, it would be purely focusing on the task at hand. I'd have no other thoughts. I'd just focus on what I was doing, focusing on that set, that rep, that exercise. There was nothing else that mattered. So find something you enjoy doing. Tip number 2, build tolerance to positive phrases. Take a piece of paper and write down all the positive things you can think about yourself. For me at the beginning, I couldn't think of any, so that's where I started. I wrote down a list of all my negatives, everything I thought about myself. Then, on another piece of paper, I wrote the polar opposite of that list. It was exactly the opposite of how I felt about myself. That positive list, I would read to myself every morning when I first woke up and every night before I just fell asleep. I hated reading it. It felt like I was lying to myself, but I persisted. I kept at it. Every morning, every night, I would read it over and over and over again out loud to myself. And the more I did it, the less gross it felt. The more comfortable I got with hearing these positive things about myself. The more I was able to reconcile that, okay, maybe there are some positive traits about me. I had to retrain my brain to get used to hearing positive things because for so many years, decades, it had only heard negative thoughts and negative things. If you've been speaking negatively to yourself for so long, this is going to take time to retrain. So keep at it. It will get better. Tip number 3, find a good support network. Find someone that allows you to offload what you're feeling without judgment. Now, for me in the beginning, the only person I could find to talk to who had no judgment was professionals. It was therapists, it was psychologists, and that helped enormously. The more I began to talk about how I was feeling, the more normal it became. I began to realize why I was feeling the way I was feeling, how I was getting triggered, and I began to anticipate what might trigger me. And it became easier to weather the storms of these emotions. Eventually, it got to a point where I could be more open with trusted friends and family members. And then when I finally met my girlfriend and could fully open up, that was so much easier. And it made the relationship that much stronger because I was able to share all of me with her. Now, finding a good support network isn't just about adding people. Sometimes it's removing people. There will be people who are toxic, people who every time you speak to make you feel worse. They're draining. Every time you're around them, you're exhausted. Or every time you try and tell them your problem, they try to make it about themselves. These are the kind of people you need to distance yourself from. Because having self-love is going to mean getting rid of people who want to draw you back into self-hate. Why self-love is shit. My biggest issue with the mainstream self-love advice that's thrown around so casually is that when you hate yourself, when you can't get out of bed, when eating becomes an effort, the last thing you feel like doing is running a bath. And there's the people that say, just be grateful, there's people far worse off than you. And it's like, dude, don't say that. I feel like shit enough as it is without feeling guilty now because I'm not grateful that I'm better off than these other people. That's not a healthy way to have self-love. Your self-love should not be dictated on being better off than someone else. There seems to be this attitude that self-hate and self-love, it's like a switch. You can just flick from one to the other, that these quick remedies will fix it. It's not a cold. And the idea that you'll never be happy or never fall in love until you learn to love yourself is total crap. And that advice only serves to make people feel worse when they're already feeling at their worst. You can fall in love without loving yourself first. You can be happy without loving yourself first. You can achieve stuff without loving yourself first. I know, I've been there. Based on the definition of, oh, I love myself so much, I still don't love myself. For me, my definition, how I define self-love, is the absence of self-hate. It's getting up every day and not saying the negative shit to yourself. It's living in the here and now without putting yourself down. It's not getting overwhelmed by the negative criticism in your head. The road to loving yourself is not going to be quick. It's something you have to consistently work at. It's like building a muscle. It takes time, consistency, and persistence. So stick at it. Know that there are no quick fixes. Know that it's okay to not love yourself. Just start by not hating yourself. So there you have it, guys. Those are my tips on how to have actual self-love and what self-love really means. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. And if you want to see more videos on the topic of transformation, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Until next time, I'm Matty B, and be kind to one another.